The Navy officially commissioned the Air Training Base October 15, 1940. In August 1941, artisans overhauled and rolled out for test the first Yellow Peril, a Stearman N2S biplane, capable of taking lots of abuse. NAS Jax was soon operating 3 runways more than 6,000 feet long, as well as seaplane ramps into the St. Johns River. During the war, the Assembly and Repair Department's labor force reached 7,300, of which 3,500 were military. Crews worked around the clock to return vital aircraft to the front lines.
When I went, I think I started at 68 cents an hour.
Following the war, Admiral Chester Nimitz ordered the formation of a flight demonstration team in 1946. The Blue Angels performed their first flight demonstration flying the Grumman F-6F Hellcat in June 1946 at their home base here on NAS Jax. The facility underwent a name change in July 1948 when it went from the Assembly and Repair Department to the Overhaul and Repair Department. The department set an impressive record when the facility sold 16 overhauled aircraft as ready for tasking in one day. This one-day record has yet to be equaled. The first P-3 Orion landed at the station on October 1, 1959. And now, Part 2.
Happy 75th anniversary, Fleet Readiness Center Southeast. During 2015, Naval Air Station Jacksonville is also celebrating its 75th anniversary, a tremendous milestone in our shared history. Today, FRC Southeast is the largest tenant command on the Master Air Base, with nearly 4,000 sailors and civilians working diligently to provide aviation maintenance support and services to the fleet. Throughout the years and through numerous conflicts, your command has positively sustained warfighter readiness by keeping aircraft and their aeronautical systems ready for tasking. Thank you for your contributions to our warriors, and happy birthday, Fleet Readiness Center Southeast.
The decade of the 1960s would find the nation involved with a foreign conflict, and the Vietnam War would eventually involve naval forces.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island.
The Cuban Missile Crisis brought America to the brink of nuclear war when Fidel Castro aimed Soviet medium-range missiles at the United States. As the decade began, 60% of the Navy's Atlantic Fleet Air Strike Force was based at Naval Air Station Jacksonville. The station's runways were the busiest, supporting 12,000 landings and takeoffs each month. For every dollar of the $1.1 million originally contributed by the citizens in 1939 to locate the base here, at least $4,375 had come back to the community. The Overhaul and Repair Department was the largest activity operating at the base with 3,077 employees in 1962. The facility was busy working on helicopters. The department's helicopter blade testing structure tested thousands of blades, spinning them at full power from 1952 until it closed in 1967. In August 1962, the facility added a new metal forming press capable of applying a pressure of 5,000 pounds per square inch. It was the largest piece of operative production machinery on the base. The year ended with Patrol Squadron VP-30 taking receipt of the first P-3A Orion. Other patrol squadrons would not make the switch to the Orion until early 1964. The Navy received the UH-2A Sea Sprite in 1963, a fast utility helicopter, and the Overhaul and Repair Department was named the prime rework site for the aircraft. It was designed to take off and land from a moving ship at sea under any weather conditions. The facility was also the prime rework site for the CH-46 Sea Knight, a medium-lift tandem-rotor helicopter, and the CH-53 Sea Stallion, a heavy-lift helicopter, both flown by the Marines. In the 1950s, the U.S. Navy chose the F-8 Crusader as its close-in air superiority fighter. Artisans worked the aircraft from 1962 to 1968. The first aircraft were assigned to Fleet Squadron VF-32 operating out of NAS Cecil Field. The Crusader was the last American fighter with guns, 22mm cannons as the primary weapon, principally serving in the Vietnam War. In 1962, the Defense Department standardized military aircraft designations along Air Force lines. Consequently, the F-8U Crusader became the F-8. Eventually, the Crusader's role would be replaced by the F-4 Phantom, which was designed as an interceptor to counter the Soviet MiG threat over Vietnam. The repair department completed its first overhaul of the A-5A Vigilante in March 1964, after being designated as the overhaul point for the aircraft. President Lyndon Johnson visited NAS Jacksonville in September to view the damage caused by Hurricane Dora. It was the only hurricane in the 20th century to make landfall on the first coast of Florida. The airbase was relatively lucky, sustaining about $193,000 of damages compared to Duval County's $280 million in damages. By the end of 1964, the overhaul and repair department was phasing out the A-3 Sky Warrior program after completing 385 aircraft. The program was replaced by the earlier arrival of the A-5 Vigilante. On February 14, 1966, the department became the designated site to rework the A-4 Skyhawk. The facility was now second only to NASA at Cape Canaveral as the largest military industrial activity in Florida. Joseph Sims started working here in 1967 as a WG-8 sheet metal mechanic. His first job was in the wing shop, fabricating and repairing the wing structures on the A-4 Skyhawk aircraft.
It was a great involvement to take a wing apart, the top skin off the wing. It was an integral fuel cell, and it had to be sealed throughout, and then the wing skin put back on it and prepared to put back on an aircraft, so it was an involved process.
Construction crews broke ground in July 1966 on a new $12 million patrol squadron complex, Hangar 1000. The design was revolutionary for the Navy in that, for the first time, the squadrons would be co-located with the supply and maintenance functions of the Aircraft Maintenance Department. On April 1, 1967, the Overhaul and Repair Department was redesignated the Naval Air Rework Facility, or NARF, and became a separate command under the commander, Naval Air Systems Command. Later in September, NARF started processing the first A-7A Corsair II. The A-7 remained a prime rework aircraft until 1997. For retired Navy attack pilot Captain Craig Crash Landon, flying the A-7 Corsair II was the highlight of his naval career. He was one of the first pilots to fly the aircraft while stationed at NAS Cecil Field, completing several deployments aboard USS America during the Vietnam conflict.
We had a very close relationship with NARF, and by we I mean Cecil Field and the folks at NARF. They of course fixed our airplanes. Whenever an A-7 was damaged or needed repair or needed refurbishment, needed painting, we always brought it here. I've flown in and out of Jax many times delivering and picking up airplanes, and they always did a super job for us.
A 16-year era ended December 7, 1967, with the last test flight of the 2,123rd helicopter to be overhauled at NARF. The helicopter program was being transferred to NAS Pensacola. During that time, more than 20 different models had been overhauled, ranging in size from the small two-seat TH-13 Sioux to the huge, heavy-lift CH-37 Mojave helicopter. NARF mechanics had traveled the globe from frigid Iceland to the jungles of Vietnam to keep helicopters flying. The 1970s were a tumultuous time and pivotal in social progression. In some ways, the decade was a continuation of the 1960s. With the growing awareness of civil rights and the women's rights movement in America, people were gaining headway in their struggle for political and economic power as they continued to fight for equality. Many Americans joined the protest against the ongoing war in Vietnam. In 1973, the 6 anti-submarine patrol squadrons of Fleet Air Wing 11, comprised of 2,100 men and 54 P-3C Orion aircraft, were shifted under the new command title of Commander Patrol Wing 11. NARF completed its last A-4 Skyhawk rework in August 1973. When the program ended, the Artisans had reworked more than 1,200 of these aircraft. Artisans started repairs in April 1975 on the new TF-34 jet engine, used to power the S-3A Viking, the Navy's newest anti-submarine aircraft. The Viking, a highly advanced carrier-qualified jet aircraft, replaced the older, propeller-driven S-2 Tracker, which had been the Navy's primary carrier-based submarine hunter for more than 20 years. NARF also inducted its first P-3C Orion for rework. This aircraft contained new avionics and software, including a versatile computer language, the Omega Worldwide Navigation System, increased sound processing sensitivity, a tactical display scope, improved magnetic tape transport, and a 7-fold increase in computer memory capacity from 65,000 to 458,000 words. Helicopter Anti-Submarine Wing 1 controlled 6 operational squadrons and 1 training squadron, HS-1, in 1974. The squadrons flew the Sikorsky SH-3 Sea King. By 1975, NARF employed 2,800 civilians and had an annual payroll of $45 million.
At that time, we were strong into the A7 program. NARF was working the P3s. We had we still had the A5 program. So I was assigned to the wing shop once again, and we were doing massive work on the A7 center wings, plus other components.
And whenever an airplane was refurbished at NARF, you'd have to send a squadron test pilot over here, and we'd take off and make sure everything was working. And if it was, we landed back at Cecil Field. If there was something we thought they needed to continue to work on here, we'd land back here.
One of the most advanced jet engine test facilities in the Navy opened at NARF in 1978. The Richard J. Cammon Standard Navy Test Cell was named to honor the University of Florida mechanical engineering graduate whose interest in jet engine testing led to the development of the test facility. On April 8, 1975, a fire consumed the East Cooling Tower, which was under construction and had to be rebuilt. The F-4 continued to form a major part of U.S. military air power throughout the 1970s and into the 1980s, being gradually replaced by more modern aircraft such as the Grumman F-14 Tomcat and the Navy's new FA-18 Hornet. The Hornet would be the nation's first strike attack fighter, scheduled for fleet delivery in the early 1980s. The NARF workforce, while continuing to overhaul and repair legacy aircraft, was gearing up to repair the Navy's newest assets in support of combat operations worldwide. As the 1970s were drawing to a close with the election of a new president, more changes would be coming to the facility in size, personnel, and a new name.
Hey, FRC Southeast, Captain Tim Fanenstein here. Used to be the production officer a couple of years ago. Now I'm CO at FRC Southwest. Your counterparts, your enterprise collaborators. Hey, I just want to say one thing. Y'all are awesome. You all are a national treasure too. You do things no one else in the world does. I mean, find someone who can do this. Take a plane apart, bust it down, put it back together. Can't be done. It's done by folks like you. And on the 75th anniversary, we need to note that all the employees here at FRC Southeast are indeed a national treasure. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to say so, because you guys rock. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Marco Rubio, and it's my honor and privilege to serve the great state of Florida in the United States Senate. I'd like to congratulate Fleet Readiness Center Southeast at Naval Air Station Jacksonville for its 75 years of service to the fleet. I join Floridians across the state in recognizing this significant achievement and commend the employees at Fleet Readiness Center Southeast for their work in maintaining our Navy's defense capabilities. The Navy has just 8 Fleet Readiness Centers in the world, and we are proud that Florida is home to one of them. The men and women who work at Fleet Readiness Center Southeast have shown their dedication to this country, and this landmark achievement would not have been possible without your tireless efforts and those who came before you in serving our country. We are honored to have you call Jacksonville home, and I join you in celebrating Fleet Readiness Center Southeast's contributions to the safety and security of this country.